Hello and welcome to MySecurityTV and our Tech and Sec Weekly. My name's Chris Cubbage, I'm the editor with MySecurity Media. Today we're crossing back to Melbourne. I'm in Singapore with Omer Grossman, who is with CyberArk, the Chief Trust Officer and Head of the Cyber Unit. Omer, thanks for joining us.
Great being here. Thank you for having me.
Omer, CyberArk, we've had CyberArk on a number of times, definitely leaders in identity management and the like. We're going to cross off over a few of the recent disruptions that have been going on. Cyber does not stop, and you've been in the region. You've just been into Singapore, and you're now in Australia. Outreach to your clients and your partners. Maybe introduce us to your role, your Chief Trust Officer. Just off camera, we were talking about that particular role and the importance of trust. But yeah, really keen to get your insights as to what you've been seeing and hearing here in the region. And particularly some insights into recent threat intel and disruptions that have been going on. Chief Trust Officer, maybe let's start there.
Great. First of all, sorry for missing you in Singapore.
Yes.
The idea behind the Chief Trust Officer started more than a year ago when we decided at CyberArk leadership that we need to double down on the trust factor as being a trusted vendor to our customers, a trusted partner, and even a trusted expert, which is one of our values at CyberArk. And we started to formalize in a small unit, but basically to manage the strategic relationship with our customer alongside building cyber security relevant services, a little bit of our IR team, maybe similar to Unit 42 and Mania. That was the notion. Yeah. Alongside the relationship management and the management of and facilitation of the CISO community, everything end-to-end from a strategic relationship management with our customers. That was the idea. It is built specifically, in my case, on one previous engagement and long-term 2 decades of military career in the cyber defense and cyber warfare. And the second thing, on my 3 years prior to this role, the CIO and acting CISO at CyberArk, basically drinking our own champagne, using our own solutions, and basically being one of the biggest cybersecurity vendors out there in the market. So we know our cyber.
Well, it's one of those things, definitely, even just some recent interviews that we've done, defense-related sort of companies and those skill sets are now very applicable in the cyber environment for that, for critical infrastructure protection in particular. Again, what are some of your insights, pain points for your partners and clients, and how are they using sort of the CyberArk tools as well? That the insider threat and third-party risk management is a key challenge for many corporates.
So before I'll explain that, I'll take a step back and say that in general, identity security is a main pillar in the entire cybersecurity space. And I would even, we both go a long way back. We remember when the firewall pretty much, when the firewall was introduced, the world was simpler, much flatter. The bad guys are out, the good guys are in. And basically that was the last time the defender had the upper hand over the attackers in a general manner. What is happening now with the cloud migration, and after COVID for sure, work from anywhere motion, what becomes the new perimeter is actually your identity. And the zero trust approach basically replaced the perimeter-based approach, where you never trust and you always verify. That's the notion. The way to really implement this philosophy, this strategy, is through an identity security platform. Basically have identity security controls that can revalidate your identity. And this is where I'm kind of diving one step into the one level down into the CyberArk offering, the CyberArk platform, the CyberArk capabilities, where we're securing the workforce, each and every employee, MFA, SSO, the cyber hygiene that you're familiar with, secure access to the SaaS solution, etc. We have the IT admins, the privileged access management, the one of the toughest challenges that CyberArk solved 20 plus years ago. This is where we took the lead and created this domain originally. the IT admins, the people that pretty much hold the keys to the kingdom, the admins. The next family is the developers. They're not exactly admins, they're not exactly workforce. They have specific privileged access to specific cloud tenant or production environments, and you need to treat them differently. They need to run fast, and the security needs to be as seamless as possible. And the next one is the machine space. Basically, we can talk about the workloads and devices mostly, which is currently exploding with certificates and cloud capabilities. What's really, really, really new is the AI agents, a new kind of animal, if you'd like, something between human and machine, working like human on behalf of human, potentially with human-like permissions, but actually at the scale of the machine, millions, and at the speed of the machine, autonomously, and you need to leverage all of our controls, identity security controls, in order to be able to control them. So workforce, IT admins, developers, machines, and now AI agents. This is the offering. And what we're seeing is end-to-end implementation of our solution, and the AI agents solution, the security for the AI agents, basically was announced last week and will be available by the end of this year, soon, next month. And we assume that the more mature companies that are already started shifting from the ChatGPT of the world, the generative AI wave, to the agentic era, leveraging the power of the agents, will have to adapt it in order to stay secure and have the right guardrails for leveraging all the potential that AI brings us. And maybe we'll talk about AI in a more holistic way in a sec, but without breaking the business. That's the main challenge.
You've described it really, really well. I haven't actually had it described, particularly when you're talking about identity before. But as you say, the agent AI takes on that hybrid approach of being a machine or a human, as well as scale, the other aspect there. The other challenge I'm finding that enterprise has is that you mentioned the perimeter's gone. It's been gone for some time, but the environment's changing every day. There's new spin-ups in cloud environments occurring. So I do find that they do struggle with maintaining that identity or maintaining the shifts within identity. And even some of the breaches, we've had some significant ones here in Australia, but that was through third parties. How do they go about that? Is it just that zero trust approach where, deny by default approach should be done primarily?
So the short answer is yes. If I'll elaborate a little bit. So I know it's not sexy to say that, but you need to get back to the basics. There's the cyber hygiene thing, like least privileged approach. This principle still holds when you create an identity, you create a user, you give it the least privileged approach, the least privileged permission it needs. That's one. The second thing, you need to have, and it's important, it's never a one-off. If you have a CIO or a CISO kind of doing a sprint, going over the entire identity list, entire user, and kind of trying to delete and decrease the number of high permission admins or so that, it's nice for a month or two, but as you said, the environment is constantly shifting, new users are coming in, external contractors are joining the company. You need, and that's the second piece, you need identity lifecycle management. You need to govern the entire cycle, joiner, mover, leavers, potentially automated with maybe human over the loop, like whatever needs. It's not necessarily for human to approve it if it's going through a really construct and formal process. And whenever there's an anomaly or exclusion, it goes to human. So it's not kind of spamming the CIO or the executive or whatever. So after the hygiene and the least privilege principle that still holds, you have the lifecycle management of the identities, potentially automated. And the last piece, on top of this IGA layer, is the potentially, we're talking about a modern approach, so it's just in time. Just in time or zero standing privilege, it's replacing the standing privilege, the static, constant credential that you get when you joined onboarding an organization. And if nothing happened, it will be with you for 20 years. That doesn't work anymore. Attackers, nation state, as well as cybercrime groups, the first thing they're trying to do is steal your credentials, because just after that, they don't need to hack. They just need to log in instead of you, on behalf of you, copycatting you. So the just-in-time principle, which has already proven solutions, basically saying we're reducing the attack surface, the risk, by creating the token, the API key, the credential, the permission, just as you connect to the tenant, to the session, whatever, you get the permission right at the point of access. And when you finish this session, you finish what you need to do. You connected to Salesforce, you did your thing, you log out. The token, the credential is revoked. So when you're not connected, there isn't anything to steal. So we reduced the attack surface basically dramatically. There isn't anything to steal. So hygiene, least privilege, IGA, identity governance and administration, the lifecycle management, and on top of that, just in time, all those 3 layers. If you can implement it in the right way, like deep and wide, it will, I think, from my experience, reduce 95+% of the risk in a company.
Do you find with particularly with your clients, where do they find that even just to start or to adopt a platform like CyberArk, where do you find that they struggle, or and are you still seeing and meeting clients that this is all new for them, or are you finding now most environments are rapidly adopting this? Because it's always been, identity management's always been a journey. It's not something you can just switch on. You have to roll it out or sort of adopt it within sort of a program of work. Where do you find they struggle? Is it just starting? The start point seems to be the hardest, or they don't tend to manage it or resource it appropriately where it can be rolled out quite quickly. Where do you find that struggle? Because I hear it and I see it, particularly the way you've described it so well, but we still see breach after breach, and the bad actors are getting those credentials.
Yeah, so that's, first of all, that's a very an excellent question, and my answer will be it depends. If you're a mature enterprise, and I'm in Australia right now, so I already met a few of our bigger customers. It depends, because if you're well funded and you're thinking about it, as you said, as a program, it's not a sprint. It will be probably a multi-year journey. You said it's a journey, I agree. So you're setting milestone and you're managing it, again, as a marathon. You have deep foundations, and you're not just running to paint the wall on the 7th floor. You're starting with the foundation. The main challenges that I found, and again, we're using as customer zero our own solutions internally. One is a change management for the people. Every program, every transformation, technical transformation and security transformation within the identity security domain is a big program for sure. 70%, I like to follow the 70-20-10 rule. Right. 70% is the people. You need to win hearts and minds. You need to do an enablement. They have their daily routine changes. They need to know how they connect through, if it's PAM, privileged access management, one tool. If it's an identity IDP, MFA, so it's different tool. It changes their experience, the user experience. You need to enable that. 20% is the process, only 10% is the tech. Mostly the tech isn't the issue. It's solvable. Mostly everything is solvable. So you need to start with the enablement of the people. The second thing, it's a journey because it's a prominent attack vector, the credential theft. It can meet you on your endpoint, in the cloud, through API keys of the machine that you're using, across the board. So it's not enough to deal with the IT admins. It might have been enough 10 plus years ago when those were the only one that hold the king to the kingdom. But with the move to the cloud, the transition to the cloud, and developers become, and the DevSecOps motion where developers have more permission, and now machine are with thriving with all the automation, which is great. It makes our companies and businesses more productive and efficient. So it's not enough. You need to follow through the program, and therefore it's a marathon. And where I see companies struggle is maintaining the same rapid cadence, energy, sometimes funding throughout the entire 2-3 years journey to set the right foundation. So enablement of the people and the program management across the year and the investment of it.
Well, that leads me to my next question. As you're talking, who do you find that you are talking to at the client side? Obviously, the CISOs are quite important, but do you find you're getting to the director level and the executive team, the boards in particular? They need to hear that because they need to be on board, and they're probably the key leaders of each business.
I'm going to leverage that. The board should be on board. Yes, the CISO is our main buyer. Usually, the CIO is involved. This is where the overlaps, the identity security and the identity management kind of sometimes overlap. Some of the security operation teams are sometimes not under the CISO, but under the CIO. IAM team might be under the CIO, not the CISO. So this is where the main stakeholders. I would say that the CTO or the head of product or R&D, they have different names in different companies because of the developer community, because almost every company today, at some extent, at some level, is a software company. You have a development unit. So you have another buyer, the CTO. If the CISO is mature and there is a whole company government, and it's not the corporate security, but it's the entire company security, including the product, the CISO can oversight everything. If not, you need to address the CTO. And going back to the board or the leadership, the minute that cyber became a strategic risk for company business continuity, you see it great in banks, in the financial sector. It's heavily regulated, and it's one of the top risks. Whenever you see cyber, and I think in most mature enterprises, cyber is one of the top 3 risks out there. It's a board decision. It's a leadership decision, and they're on board. You need to address. Sometimes you need to educate the board and the leadership so they will not know what is the threat environment, what are the risks around it that involve it, what question they should ask. Sometimes you need to educate them.
Well, we've just had a slight change. There's been some thinking just in Australia just recently with cyber taking on with the chief risk officer, as you sort of explained, it is one of the top corporate risks today. So the CISO is there from the security aspect, but may not necessarily be there managing the risk, given how serious this is. Is that something, maybe we'll finish off on that in terms of what you've been seeing? Are you seeing any changes within the corporate environment foresight.
Yeah.
I mentioned at the outset, we're definitely seeing more defensive, given that we're protecting critical infrastructure and the geopolitical environment and the number of attacks. There's a lot happening. Are you seeing any changes, and particularly since you've come from Singapore and now in Australia, anything new or different that pops up?
Yeah. So the first thing I want to say how impressed I am of the Australian government leadership with the 2030 initiative, 6 pillars, or the Essential 8 framework, or you see a top-down decision that Australia will be, and I'm sure it will, the most cyber secure nation by 2030. That's a statement that you don't hear from many different countries. I see how this motion gets its traction. Like I see different, I hear different narrative. I see investment, at least in the corporate that I've met with, that we're pulling investment in other domains, but cyber is something that the boards still push us forward. That's something that wasn't necessarily the case a few years ago. I've been in last time I've been in 2 years ago. I actually hear the transition, the shift. So the risk is much more solidified or materialized or prioritized. That's one. The second thing, but by the way, I see it also in Singapore. I see it more in Australia from a narrative perspective, top down. The second thing I would say, China is in the region. What has happened in the last 2 years is that it leveraged its cyber force or the force projection within the cyber domain in a much more aggressive way. Usually in the cyberspace, cyber espionage is considered as valid. Everybody is spying after everybody. What we've seen from a cyber espionage perspective, information gathering from the Chinese nation state actor has no precedent in history, in the recent history that I remember from a scale perspective. Maybe spying is legit to some extent, but it might become a death by 1,000 cuts kind of scenario. When too much of your information has leaked, it's an issue. The second thing that I'm seeing from is much more aggressive is a CNA kind of disruption operation, if you're gonna call it red buttons, like we saw with the Volt Typhoon attack on the western coast in the US. That's something that a nation state usually doesn't do, and it doesn't have any excuse. It wasn't there for espionage. It was explicitly as an option to project force as part of a military conflict. And I think that cyber, to some extent, as a domain, is not yet perceived as the other kinetic physical domains, which leaves some room for flexibility without crossing the threshold of rule of conduct, if you like. So after the second thing is about the Chinese actor much more aggressive globally and in the region as well.
Well, they've also had support from others as well. We do have conflict locations around the world, Ukraine being one in particular with I think also within that defense domain, cyber is definitely as a key domain. I think that's the other thing is the militaries and the nation state actors are only as our security has to adapt to that. Well, Omer, I suppose one of the key things we've covered off a lot there, and particularly even down through to the geopolitics, it sounds like you get a sense that from in Australia as well. Maybe to finish off, you're there in Sydney, you're going to be in Melbourne. Where else can people get in touch with you? And in your role as Chief Trust Officer, I'm assuming that you're one to be readily reached out to by your clients and your partners.
Yeah, the easiest way to reach out is through LinkedIn. Just DM me. I'm doing my best replying and responding to anybody. I'm pretty responsive, almost 24/7.
You can't flip
I'll
to
be
say
more
that.
than happy. Yeah, I'm more than happy to engage. It can be around identity security. It can be around cybersecurity as a whole. I really see it as a way to try and do some good in the world, have some impact, potentially promote cybersecurity as a prominent priority.
Well, I think you've explained why it's a challenge. The 70-20-10 rule. I normally go on the Pareto principle of 80-20, but as you say, 10 is just the tech. The biggest challenge is in process and people. But Omer Grossman, the Chief Trust Officer and Head of the Cyber Unit with CyberArk, thanks once again for joining us on MySecurityTV, and safe travels, and enjoy the rest of your time in Australia.
Appreciate it. Thank you for having me again, Chris.
Thank you.